This is the Jim and Terry Show, coming to you from sunny downtown Bob Cage, and I'm your host, Terry, and beside me in this Hobbit Hole studio is my special guest.
Hi, Terry. This is Jim. I know I was loud on the last podcast, so I've decided to be a little more gentler.
You must have been listening to some Deepak Chopra.
I was trying to be
some
Michael
meditation,
Jackson.
some mellow. You're taking a chill pill. Maybe you're into some edibles. I don't know. I know I didn't give you any for breakfast.
Well, how do I know? What a great breakfast, by the way. Jams and guacamole on rice,
Guatemala on a rice toast.
whatever, and your homemade beets, jams and peanut butter, and that coffee was delicious.
Yeah, that's the last of my, what is it, brand? You got me.
Anyway, it was great.
Okay. Anyway, we used to explore coffee. Now we just drink it and get down to business.
Now we just drink.
Get down to business. We used to search for the perfect cup of coffee. But then we saw Seinfeld's episode in Comedians in Cars with Search of Coffee or whatever it was called. I'd rather he do the show and I'll watch it.
Well, everybody has different tastes. You know, like you like
fine.
yours maybe slightly stronger than I would like it. When I go to church, I can tell who's made the coffee.
By how strong it is.
By how strong it is. And I like it, the weaker coffee, the person that makes it too strong, then I can't breathe on anybody for the whole day.
I like a weaker coffee to start, but finish with bold. Ease into some of these things. All right, we're going to talk about some things. I'm not sure why you're doing the can.
Bold cup being bold.
Oh, I thought you were going to go into da 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 da. You know the legs that go.
That's not bold at all.
That's very bold.
That's
risque.
That's risque.
Okay, is that what we were talking about? I know how this relates to Ukraine and Russia and 300,000 conscripts. I don't know.
Because we need joy in our lives.
So we're going to sing and dance our way to the front.
Complete nuclear disaster.
This sounds like Dr. Strangelove.
Yes.
We're going to ride the nuclear bomb from the B-52 all the way down.
So did you hear that Russia has commissioned 300,000 soldiers? The borders, as you pointed out to me, fleeing every country that borders Russia is lined up for miles, people trying to get out of Russia. One of the biggest followed website in Russia is How to Break Your Leg and Arm. And you looked at me funny, and I said, that's because if you got a broken arm and a broken leg, you can't go to the front. And what do you think? I mean, and Putin basically said, we're not opposed to using nuclear bombs in order to make this go away.
I found it interesting that his rationale for saying that was territorial integrity. Do you recall that word being used by Putin in his speech? Pre-recorded speech, by the way, which meant he sat on that for a bit. Who knows when he recorded it?
Probably in hiding somewhere, you know.
Yeah, he might even be out of the country as we speak.
You never know.
We never know.
But we got to remember something as well, and I've totally forgot. It slipped my mind, but it was a point. Oh, Putin has called for a referendum within the
four territories.
annexed territories that Russia stole 14 years ago, whatever it was, 10 years ago. And the idea behind that, I never really heard it mentioned on TV, but I'll tell you, is if they vote in favor to join with the mother country Russia, which they will because the election's a sham, any bullet then that flies into that area is an attack on the motherland.
And
justify him completely committing atrocities.
Now,
greater atrocities.
So that's how he thinks he's going to get away with it, whether the
with
people
his own
listen,
people, he will.
With his own people. Biden at the UN had a great speech, by the way. I don't know whether you caught it. I followed it all the way through. I thought he framed it very well, that this was a one-sided decision. Nobody wanted this. Only one person, only one country wanted this, nobody else. He got 141 countries to vote in censure of Russia because of their aggression. Russia is alone, and Putin is alone in his mad machinations of whatever he's thinking he's doing. But the nuclear threat, based on territorial integrity, based on those 4 referendums in those regions that have installed Soviet-style puppet regimes, Biden already said that those are meaningless referendums because it's not a free and fair vote.
Oh, it's totally. We you can always tell a fake anything when it's 98% voted yes. It's just that. How greater of an ego do you really think it is displayed there? Nobody gets 100%. Nobody gets 98%. So we know we know this is going to be absolutely a sham because I just told you why he's doing it, and maybe that's been announced now. But I mean, to me, it's plain that this becomes motherland. Then you're invading Russia, which will get him to get his people on side. I don't know why he does all this because he can just tell his people we're being invaded. I don't know why he goes through all this.
He thinks he's justifying it in Western eyes because the whole West is against him.
Well, the funny thing is he said to his people in that talk, which made it to America, and of course he knew it would, that we're the ones threatening nuclear war.
Yes.
I mean, see how and this is so Trumpism. Sorry, we're not going to Trump. But it's twisting the truth right around to be the reverse of what it actually is.
Well, as the Canadian ambassador to the United Nations often says, whatever comes out of Putin's mouth is a lie, and you cannot trust him. I follow Bob Ray on Twitter, and I appreciate his wisdom and representation on my behalf, on our behalf as Canadians at the UN. And he has nothing good to say about Russia or Putin, and I do believe what he says and what he represents in terms of Canadian values. So, Bob Ray, here's a shout out to you. Thank you for representing Canada.
I'm sure he'll call us and
I'm sure he wants to be a guest in our 6 foot by 9 foot.
If we can squeeze him in.
Footage.
But I'm not giving him my seat. I'm sorry.
Getting back to Ukraine. I heard the number 1,300 and plus people being rounded up in protest in Montreal and St. Peter. Not Montreal.
Montreal?
Maybe there's a Freudian slip.
Oh,
what right-wing autocracy is going on in Quebec? Oh, we'll get to that with election talk in Canada. But let's stick to Montreal. Moscow and St. Petersburg are the 2 places, and other smaller towns around Moscow. 1,300, and apparently, if it's true, and I cannot verify this stuff, so I got to say it with a grain of salt, that they are taking some of these people that they arrested and making them wait to show up at the conscript office to register. So right from social protest to being conscripted into the 300,000 force.
Well, isn't that the army you really want?
Yeah.
People that just don't want to be there and want to get out of there and probably are online looking how to break a leg or break an arm so you don't have to go into battle. Yeah. Unbelievable. Look what he's doing to his own country people. And I heard that those that he was going to throw in jail, he was going to dip in blood. What was that about? Did you hear that?
No.
Maybe he's keeping the blood of the fallen soldiers? I don't know. That's weird.
There was a prisoner exchange. Some Ukrainian soldiers were released, an American, a Brit, and I don't know who else. But
did the basketball player get released?
Not yet. So that's your ace up your sleeve, your trump card.
Up yours,
Okay, so that's the latest that we know. I'm hoping that Ukraine, who seem to be, you've seen these images on YouTube probably, farmers towing tanks.
I didn't see that, no.
Lots of images and video of Ukrainian farmers with their tractors towing Russian vehicles out of their fields.
So they can plow.
So they can plow, but also if they've been abandoned and not hit, then they become the possibility of being refurbished for Ukrainian purposes. And apparently that's happening now on whatever the front lines, wherever they are, that they're using repurposed Russian Zedmobiles. That's what I call those, because they all have the big Zedmobiles.
Because they paint Zeds.
Well, they're not
Z's?
They're not worth much, apparently, because they get hit by these little drone bombs and the turrets fly off of them.
Well, you also got people that don't want to be fighting this war, which are going to use any reason to probably just get out of that thing and run.
Right, and I would too if I saw a HIMARS system and it was starting to zero in on my position. I'd get out too. Lots of videos of Russian tanks trying to make a mad dash and not making.
So how is this all going to end, do you think?
It's got to end only one way, a negotiated settlement where Ukraine, and I've said this from the beginning, you can quote me on this, Navalny needs to be released from prison, negotiate with Zelensky, and that will bring an end to all of this.
You heard it here, folks.
First on the Jim and Terry Show, I'm Terry.
I'm Jim.
Together, we're still two guys with not so much of a coffee anymore. Still talking about things we heard.
Yes.
Take care now. Bye-bye.
Did you hear?